This talk will be in English.
Genau, wir werden den Vortrag auf Englisch machen. Also wenn ihr Fragen habt, könnt ihr auch auf Deutsch fragen. Oder
Ja,
wenn was
please,
nicht klar ist, bitte einfach unterbrechen und fragen. So our presentation will be in English. So the talk...
No, just the title, because mostly Joseph will talk about how to reclaim culture behind the GAFAM, and I will talk about this creative way to force interoperability, because regulation will be slower rather than our expectation. It's Joseph, and I'm Claudio.
Yeah, we might keep it short and sweet. And instead of waiting for the Digital Markets Act to make interoperability the law in Europe, we want to force it in any way legally and technically possible. And this is about reclaiming culture from the parasitic big tech companies that our culture is being co-opted by for their own economic purposes, and that's the main purpose of the talk here. And we have a call to action where we want anyone here who either organizes events or is interested in developing tools to help us with an event management platform to scrape events or share events with other platforms, to join us on Saturday, this Saturday, the 11th of June, is that right? At 2 o'clock here in Seabase for a hackathon. So the project is Mobilize.berlin. It's part of the Fediverse. It's an ActivityPub-based event management platform. It's interoperable with all of the Fediverse platforms like Mastodon, PixelFed, PeerTube, etc. The project, in some sense, started in 2018 at the CCC when Rosa Rave and the Reclaim Club Culture group presented about wanting to reclaim the Berlin club culture from commercialization and make it, return it to an autonomous space. Over the years, the club culture in Berlin has been more and more commercialized. I think you can say this project really starts much further back, decades back, when the club scene and the tech scene were actually much more integrated, and this is an attempt to bring it back to something that it was before, that it's changed from since then. So in 2018, there's a presentation, you can find it online. 2019 at the KS Communication Camp, Rosa Rave, Max and Mark. Max is an artist who is in the documentary Nothing to Hide. Mark is the documentary filmmaker. Met and discussed how to realize reclaiming club culture, not just in an analog way, but also in a digital way. So what are the platforms that we use to promote club culture? And how do we take it back from corporations like Facebook, whatever, Google, Twitter, etc. And at that point, this project was really born, although we didn't know at that time which platform we were going to adopt. The idea, the seed was planted that we're going to look for platforms that are based on free and open source software, which promote transparency and user autonomy, decentralization, so users have a choice about where their data is, event organizers have a choice about the way that they implement their platform. And shortly after that, the Mobilize.berlin platform became one of the options that was discussed. We had a meeting with the Mobilize.berlin developers. We discussed what the platform is, what the ActivityPub protocol means, and shortly after that, we gave a presentation at the CCC about our idea about adopting Mobilize.berlin in a project to promote events in Berlin for the club and party culture. So that was the beginning of the Mobilize.berlin project. People started to get involved. We had a mailing list, etc. In about 6 months, we had a launch event in June 2021. This is in Gorlitzer Park. We had musicians come, we had people give presentations and speak about why free software is important, why culture is something that we should want to reclaim and not let it be co-opted by perverse economic incentives. And this is exactly in June 2021. We were a medium-sized group. It was a nice event. It was a very hot day, almost exactly 1 year ago. And we had very few users, as you see. This is the graph of the number of users. The y-axis is the accounts on Mobilize.on, and the x-axis is time. Over time, several events happened. So this is the launch event 1 year ago. This is in November. Mark, one of the people who was involved in the project early on, was making a new documentary called Disappear, Cover Your Online Tracks. You can watch it online at Arte. The documentary was released, and part of the documentary was about free software, and he used the Mobilize.on and the Mobilize.berlin project as an example of the way that communities, through free software, can take control of their digital self. The documentary was online. It was, it's Arte, it had a lot of viewers, and suddenly we had a spike in users. That happened after that event. So this is not too long ago. This is in April, so about 6 months after that. Billionaires decided, or one billionaire decided to play in our digital playground and wants to buy up a centralized service. You can do this with centralized services. You can buy the entire thing and take control of it. You can change the terms of service despite what the users might want. You can take control of the whole system for your own ego. And this then made people more aware of the dangers of centralized systems, where one entity controls the whole thing, where the terms of service are not determined by the users, but by the company behind it, or the person behind it. We suddenly saw another bump. This is just a couple months ago, and that brings us to today. Mobilize.on and Mobilize.berlin so this is just our instance of Mobilize.on. Mobilize.on, being a decentralized service, has many possible instances. There are many that exist right now. This is just Mobilize.berlin. We have been working on promoting the project now for a year. We've had several different adopters coming from the Open Hardware Research Project, Culture of Remembrance Project, free software groups. It's beyond just Berlin. A club in Potsdam has started using it. There's a political festival. A bar in Neukölln has started using it. So it's slowly starting to develop into something that we hope will have more and more users. It's at the moment more of a place for people who are interested in autonomy, privacy, data control, and things like this. If you're looking for mass adoption, this is not the service for you. But if we were looking for mass adoption, many of us probably wouldn't be doing a lot of things that we're doing. We're taking the software, we're trying to push it further. One of the ways that we're doing that is, this is something that is not in the upstream branch of Mobilize.on. It's a network of the people within the network. So you can see which groups are organizing events, how they're connected with each other. This is a development that we're working on. It's not in the upstream branch at this time. We are also developing further tools to make it possible to more easily promote events beyond Mobilize.berlin and Mobilize.on to other platforms, and that's where Claudio comes in. So,
thank you. This is an example on how the official Mobilizon is diverging, the Mobilize.berlin is diverging from the official Mobilizon, but because it's free software, we try to make changes that can be integrated. What's the big deal behind? The critical mass problem. So we know that there exist alternatives to the centralized systems, and the Fediverse Mastodon is the most known platform to make a replacement for the centralized system. They exist, but they always struggle because you don't find nobody there, or you only find specific communities if you are very close to them, but still your life is complex, you still have parents, you still have someone that doesn't get out of Facebook. You need to stay in the network that has more peers. That is named the Metcalfe's law. And in this example from Wikipedia, explain how a fax machine is useless if it's only one fax machine. Instead, a network of fax machine take much more value. So the value of a network is equal to the square of the nodes. And if WhatsApp and Facebook are in the order of the billions, we see that it's a difficult challenge. But what we want to propose in this action is what we call data liberation. So if Facebook is taking hostages, the people and their data, and they cannot leave because otherwise they feel alone, why we do not start to copy those data and publish them forcefully in the Fediverse? Then if you are in the Fediverse, you may feel less lonely. Yes, of course, there will be less interaction, but we are not trying to replace the interaction. In events, an event is made to be public, is meant to be much more visible as possible, is meant to be selected. So why don't start to copy with this experiment named Libre. Libre Events is also the name of the domain name, libre.events. You can find the slide online. It's a browser extension that allows you to easily scrape an event from Facebook. You need to have a Facebook account to do that. But in the moment you copy it on a Mobilizon instance, then anybody else that is only Mobilizon can see the event. Part of the enabling and designing is what we have to address in the upcoming hackathon, because defining exactly what are the logic to decide to take events, how to change them when they are published, how to announce that they are not official pages. Those are all elements worthy of discussion. Facebook, of course, try to be antagonist on this. For example, heavily obfuscate their HTML. You can see a number of random classes made only for the sake of make analysis of Facebook itself harder. Require some automated action. You cannot copy the entire event just by accessing at the page, but you need to do some automated action. We are working on this technology to assist this data liberation. There is also another tool, is the experiment number 2. The name is Mobilizon Reshare and is made by Tech Worker Coalition. You can find a post from Simone Robutti that explains how does it work. In this case, it's not a tool that copy from elsewhere and put in Mobilizon, but is a tool that assists who already migrate in Mobilizon. So if you are an event manager, you use Mobilizon, you post there because that is where you have your community, but you are aware that the entire world is somewhere else. So this tool, immediately when spot your new update, can take a copy of this material and publish somewhere else, in Telegram, in Facebook, in Twitter, or in other networks where you know that there is some reach. This is an example on an instance of Mobilizon in Italy, so that's why it's in Italian. On Tech Worker Coalition, this event gets posted, and right immediately later is reposted in Telegram. It's a way to don't suffer the fatigue of posting in multiple platforms, but at least making you assisted in using better Mobilizon and the Fediverse. The data liberation concept is running since last November, and in order to be respectful on the clubs that we were assisting, we made up this protocol that we call the unofficial tagging. So when an event is copied and reposted without the owner being aware, we add the tag unofficial. And if you click on on information on the group, for example, Suicide Club, it's explained that this is not an official. This group is administered by the Mobilize.berlin team. We invite Suicide Club to take over this group and interact with their guest on Mobilize.berlin. In case the Suicide Club does not agree with the cross-posting, please contact us and we will delete this group immediately. So that is the assistance that we were offering to the Berlin clubs. But this effort is something that is not sustainable in the long term. So improving the technology, having more people capable to copy the events and republish them, having much more instances that became more specific, like Mobilize Berlin was meant for clubs, but now there are some instances that are growing with a specific focus of climate catastrophe and events related to climate activism or to other kind of political activism. I mean, you can have an instance for the topic you care about. So that is the hackathon that is going to happen. You will get some update in libre.events. And I didn't explain at the beginning that there are few groups that are working together in these actions. The people that get together for the Disappear documentary that you can find. Mobilize Berlin, that was the people engaging with the clubs to also talk with them and convince them to stay outside of Facebook. Tracking Exposed, which is a technology that has been presented also 6 years ago at the Seabase in an Exploitation event, and is focused on scraping material from platform to analyze their agency and their algorithm. The hackathon will last for 6 hours, and we will address the 2 tools, Mobilize Reshare and the Libre Events. We will publish updates in the next days, and if you have friends interested in do something against Facebook, that can be a good way to spend your Saturday. I guess that's all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you very much for your presentation. The event sounds very exciting as well. Does anyone have any questions?
The barman.
To be honest, it reminds me a little bit to something I read a couple of weeks ago. It's called Fediverse. It's a project, federal-driven project to combine all the hundreds of open source projects and protocols into one. Yeah. And it's also, I guess, your project is also a kind of social network, or not?
Yes, Fediverse.
So, I mean, the Fediverse is the ensemble of social networks based on the ActivityPub protocol, and Mobilize.on is one of the many platforms part of that ensemble of networks. So they all have it's part of the Fediverse. So the protocol is called the ActivityPub, and it gives a common language to all of these different platforms, although they might have a different interface underlying the platforms. You can communicate across different platforms. So for example, if you use Mastodon, which is similar to Twitter, you can interact with Mobilize.on events, posting comments. I don't know at the time if you can actually participate through, but you can participate without an account on Mobilize.on. But at some point, you probably will be able to participate using your Mastodon account on a Mobilize.on event. That would be like using Twitter to participate in a Facebook event, right? So it allows for this interoperability that goes far beyond one single interface, but it's a true social network in that sense.
In this sense, there is also a naming there is a naming complexity because we have the habit to see a platform, I don't know, Facebook, that has a network and a role. Instead, in this case, we have a protocol, ActivityPub, a network, the Fediverse, and many applications that run it, and different clients that make you plug in this network. So let's say it's less communicable, but more powerful.
Do we have more questions? All right.
We have stickers.
They have stickers, nice. Okay, and thank you very much, guys.